everyone, we're back with a math video. Today is Tuesday and we are going to continue learning more about subtraction and we're going to get some really good practice in. You're going to notice that today's 2 pages have a lot more problems and less room for drawing and modeling. In fact, we're going to kind of kiss all those pictures goodbye for today's worksheet. Unless you need them, you could always do it on a marker board or a separate sheet of paper. But today, Mrs. Grant and I are going to be showing you how to work yourself through a subtraction problem written just using our numbers and the tens and ones houses. All right, so before we begin, I just want to remind you, Mrs. Grant, about my friends, tens and ones, okay? The tens and ones, they live in separate houses right next to each other. We already know about the attic. We already know about the first floor and the second floor and the third floor. And we had a little bit of practice yesterday hearing about how Mr. Tens is super kind. In fact, he's so kind that he often lets Mr. Ones borrow things from him.
I'm noticing that for the first time, we have a ones attic and not just a tens attic.
We sure do.
I'm excited to hear about that.
Yep. Well, they live in basically the same exact house.
Yes.
So the ones always had an attic. We're just drawing the picture for it now because we don't need a ones attic when we add.
Yeah.
We only need the ones attic when we subtract. Let's take a look at how we're going to figure this problem out, and we're going to go pretty slowly through the first 2 problems to give you a chance to fully understand. Problem number 1 is 43 minus 9. I want you to notice how nice and neatly the tens belong in the tens house. Right now, the 4 is the only number in the tens house. And in our ones house, we have a 3 and we have a 9 below it. Now, I always remember something about when we subtract, we always look at the bottom number. And anytime the bottom number is bigger, we have to borrow it.
That's like
I
alliteration.
was just gonna say that. It's lots of B's. In fact, I put it in my brain as bigger bottom borrow. Try it.
Bigger bottom borrow.
Bigger bottom borrow. You try it.
Bigger bottom borrow. That's what they sound like.
Well, anytime the number on the bottom is bigger, we need to borrow from Mr. Tens. Now, we should probably be polite because sometimes Mr. Tens is sleeping, so we're gonna knock just to make sure he's not sleeping.
Nice.
And when we knock, we're going to say, "Oh, Mr. Tens, do you have any tens I can borrow?" Guess what he's gonna say?
I do. You can have one group. I need the others.
We get one group. The ones can borrow one. That was awfully kind of Mr. Tens.
I know.
So here's what's gonna happen. Mr. Tens was kind enough to loan Mr. Ones a group. And so he is no longer going to have 4 tens because he just gave you one. In fact, if he had 4 and he gave you one, how many will he have left? 3. Yeah, he's only going to have 3 left. So we used Mr. Tens attic a little differently this time, but we're not done. We just took a group of 10 and we pushed it over to Mr. Ones just to borrow. It's not going to keep it forever, just borrowing. The only place that we could put it is where?
In the attic.
In the attic. We're going to bring that group of 10 over here, and sometimes I even like to draw it over here first. So we have a group of 10, but we already have 3. Well, if we have 10 coming over and we have 3 at the top, how many would that be altogether?
13.
Yeah. So we're going to smush our top number with that group of 10, and they're going to come in the attic together just for a little while. We're not done. We didn't actually do any subtraction yet.
No, we didn't.
All right. So I now need to subtract 13 minus 9 to get my answer.
I often find it confusing if we don't cross this out.
can.
Students might do 13 minus 3. So I always tell my kids to cross that out.
We can cross it out. And you know what? When we get into another page, they can always just add the 1 right there.
Yep, they can.
That's
that makes
another
life so much easier. You're not ready for that yet because we're teaching you
We
why
can
and
show
how.
you another problem.
But
all right. So I'm crossing this out because I just rewrote it up here in Mr. One's attic. And now that Mr. Tens let us borrow, we can do some subtraction.
Yeah.
So 13 minus 9, I don't know, do you know? What could we do?
I could start at 13 and
Okay.
count down 9.
Okay.
Or I can start at 9 and count up to 13. There's a lot of different things I can do.
I love counting up. So I'm
Yeah.
going to put 9 in my head. 10, 11, 12, 13.
Mhm.
So I'm going to get 4 as my answer. All right. Am I done?
No, you have to subtract the tens column.
All right. Well, there's 3 10s hanging out up here in the attic, but there's nothing down here.
So you could either draw a 0 in here or just know that 13 minus nothing or 3 minus nothing stays 3.
All right.
Whatever's
So 3
best.
minus nothing, we are still going to get 3 as our answer. All right. Down here at the bottom, it's asking, did we need to regroup? Well, regrouping is the same thing as borrowing. Did we have to knock next door and ask Mr. Tens for anything? We did. So we need to circle.
And an easy way to
Yes.
tell is that we actually used our attics. And if you use your attic, that means you borrowed. You'll see on this one, we actually should probably do 2
Yeah.
more that
We
way.
can do 2 more for sure.
Not all of them require you to borrow, and you won't need to use the attic in that case. So maybe we could do that.
All right. Let's try another one. This time we have the problem 69 minus 3. I love how nice and neat everything is set up. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to think bigger bottom borrow. Okay, so if the number on the bottom is bigger, then we need to borrow. Well, 3 is smaller than 9, so I don't need to borrow at all. I can just do straight subtraction.
Okay.
Well, I know that 9 minus 3, I have that fact memorized from Reflex, is 6. And I know that 6 minus nothing is 6. So my final answer is 66. I didn't use the attic, so I know that the answer, or I did not regroup. All right, Mrs. Grant, do you think that I could help walk you through the next problem?
Sure.
All right.
Okay. Our problem is 35 minus 8. Everything's lined up nicely. And I know that I always started in the ones column, whether I'm adding or subtracting. So I'm going to be focusing on the 5 and the 8. And I'm going to ask myself about the bigger bottom borrow thing. And it looks like my bottom number is bigger. 8 is bigger than 5. I can't take 8 brownies if you only have 5.
No.
If I need 8 and you
not
have
gonna
5,
work.
it ain't gonna work. So I need to knock on Mr. 10's door and see if he's willing to give me one of his 3 10s.
All right.
So if he says yes, which I feel like he will because he's a pretty cool dude,
He's going to.
I'm gonna cross out the 3 and then and this is gonna be always and forever when you borrow. All you're doing is dropping this number to 1 less and rewriting it up here. Every time, no matter what that number is, you just drop it to 1 number less than it was. So a 3 becomes a 2, and now that group of 10s that he's so generously donated to our ones house is going to add to the top number. We're adding it to that top number because we need our top number to get bigger than the bottom number. Okay, so now we know that 10 plus 5 is 15. So we're going to write that new number because we smushed those together, our current 5 with the 10 that we borrowed. We smushed them together to get 15, and now everything's set up in a way that we can subtract. We're ready to go.
All right. I feel better.
Yeah,
I feel pretty good.
So I'm going to take 15 minus 8, and you can start with 15 in your head and count down, or you can do what I like to do. I like to start at 8 and count up to 15. To me, it just is easier. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that's 7. And then I look at my tens column, and I need to subtract 2 minus nothing. 2 minus nothing stays 2. So my answer is 27. And I did use the attic because I did need to borrow, so I will circle the yes, we did regroup.
All right. So on that very last problem, I don't want to do it for them, but do you think they're going to have to use the attic?
Well, I'm noticing that the bottom number is bigger, and we don't like it when the bottom number is bigger. So they're going to have to borrow.
They're going to have to knock next door. They're going to have to ask Mr. Tens, and he's, of course, going to say, oh, of course.
So you're going to be doing a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and then I'll let you figure out the rest. Okay?
All right. The rest of the worksheet on the back looks very similar to these problems, except you don't have to regroup for yes or no. But there's 2 problems down at the bottom that we're going to take a quick look at. And again, I'm not going to do these problems for you, but sometimes it's helpful to see what we're dealing with. It says a bakery makes 64 muffins. They sell 29 muffins by noon. How many muffins are left? Well, our left sounds like a subtraction problem. So we're going to be taking the number 64 and we are going to be subtracting 29. Take a look at this. This time when they subtract, there will be a number there for them to actually subtract from. All right, what does number 10 say?
There are 45 children in the gym. Some children leave. How many children could be in the gym now?
Ooh.
So we know that it started with 45. We know that it's subtraction. And we know that one of these is the answer. So if I'm subtracting, I start with my Big Daddy and I always get less.
I'm sorry, did you say Big Daddy or Big Daddy?
Big Daddy.
That's what I thought.
Which means my answer should be smaller than 45.
It needs to be a little baby.
So there's no way it could be 62.
No.
There's no way it could be 45 if somebody left.
No.
So it has to be, and I'm not just going to give it away.
No way.
It has to be something smaller than 45.
It would have to be like 36 or 37 or something like that.
Between 36 and 38.
Yeah, like right in that range because
Middle.
it's the only number that's smaller than 45.
Yeah.
All right, I think they can do it. I'm not worried anymore. Good luck, guys.